I want you to calm down and take a deep breath, because today's story is really special. Now, close your eyes and follow me back to the narrow alleys and silent dormitories of Victorian England. It is winter in London, around the year 1848. The fog is thick, wrapping the city in its grey shroud. Gas lamps struggle to pierce the mist, their light trembling in puddles along the cobblestones. Horses' hooves clatter faintly somewhere far away, and the chill creeps through every crack, every doorway, every unguarded soul. Somewhere beyond the marketplace, past the rows of leaning brick houses and smoke-blackened chimneys, stands a building without laughter. Tall, severe, built of stone that seems to drink in the darkness. Above the heavy wooden door, a sign reads, St. Agnes Orphan House for destitute children. The air inside smells of soap, damp wool, and boiled oats. Footsteps echo on stone floors. In a long dormitory lined with iron beds, dozens of children sleep huddled under thin grey blankets. Some are curled tightly, their hands clasped as if holding on to something invisible. Others lie flat, faces pale in the dim candlelight, lips parted in soft breaths. Listen, you can almost hear the sound of the wind pressing against the windows, the quiet wheeze of a child dreaming, the faint squeak of a rat somewhere in the wall. It is a house of silence, but not peace. A silence filled with longing for mothers who never came back, for fathers lost to the factories or the mines, for warmth that no blanket could give. At the far end of the room, a matron moves between the beds. Her shoes click softly against the floor. She carries a lantern, its flame throwing long shadows across the sleeping faces. She pauses by each bed, counting under her breath, making sure none have wandered, none have failed to wake again. Her face is tired, not cruel, but worn into hardness by years of repetition. In the corner, a small boy stirs. His name is Thomas Ridge, 6 years old, admitted 3 months ago after his mother died of cholera in the rookery of St. Giles. He doesn't remember her face clearly anymore, only her voice, a soft hum that used to fill their one-room lodging before the coffin came. He dreams now of her hand brushing the hair from his forehead, of light coming through a window that no longer exists. The matron's lantern pauses near him. Her voice whispers, "Sleep now, child," and the light moves on. Morning comes without sunrise, just a slow brightening of the grey, a cold that seeps through everything. A bell clangs somewhere down the hall, harsh, metallic, final. Children stir, rubbing their eyes, shivering as they sit up. No one speaks at first. They know the rules. Silence until the prayers are finished. Bare feet touch icy floors. Blankets are folded with shaking hands. Rows of small bodies form neat lines as the matron's voice commands, "To the hall." They file out, one after another, their breath visible in the chill. In the dining room, long wooden tables wait, scarred and clean. Metal bowls are filled with thin gruel, grey, steaming faintly, the smell sour and faintly sweet. Each child receives a ladle's worth. They eat in silence, spoons clinking softly. The sound of hundreds of tiny movements, mechanical, learned. Thomas glances at the girl across from him, Emily Hart, perhaps 8, her hair the color of straw, cut bluntly above her shoulders. She doesn't look up, just stirs her spoon slowly, eyes far away. They are all far away, even when they sit side by side. At the front of the hall, a portrait hangs, Queen Victoria herself, stern and distant, watching over them. Beside it, a framed verse, "Suffer the little children to come unto me." The matron recites a prayer. Dozens of small voices repeat the words, some clear, some broken by coughs. When it ends, they rise, and the day begins. The orphanage runs like a machine, each hour measured, each task assigned. Older boys scrub floors and carry coal. Girls mend linens, polish shoes, wash rags until their fingers crack from the lye. The smallest ones pick thread, sort needles, or sit in a classroom reciting alphabets to a weary teacher whose voice never rises or falls. Discipline is the spine of the place. For talking out of turn, no supper. For tears, a slap or a cold water wash. For fighting, a night locked in the storeroom, alone with the mice. Yet even here, life stirs. Children whisper in corners, share crusts of bread, sneak pebbles or feathers they find in the yard. Tiny treasures that remind them the world is still wide. Thomas once found a button shaped like a flower. He keeps it hidden under his mattress, touching it sometimes before sleep, imagining it was from his mother's coat. At noon, The bells ring again. Lunch, boiled potatoes, sometimes a slice of bread, rarely a trace of meat. Steam fills the room. The windows fog. Outside, snow begins to fall, flakes drifting past iron bars that guard the lower windows. No child is allowed beyond the gate without escort. To the city beyond, they do not exist. The matron and the overseer, Mr. Caldwell, keep records in neat ledgers, names, ages, illnesses, deaths, columns of numbers that mean nothing to the children they describe. Sometimes one disappears from the rows of beds, and another small name is added to the pages. No one asks aloud what happened. They already know, but not every moment is grim. On Sundays, they are marched to the chapel in the next street, a cold building of stone where the preacheress voice echoes against empty pews. He speaks of virtue, of gratitude, of God's plan for the poor. Most of the children nod sleepily. Some whisper hymns under their breath. For them, the walk itself is a joy, the only time they see the sky without bars. They pass by bakeries, the smell of warm bread drifting out into the snow. They glimpse other children, well-fed, clean, holding their mother's hands. A strange mix of envy and wonder fills their chests. Then the line moves on, and the world closes again. At night, when the candles burn low, whispers rise in the dormitory. Stories traded like stolen sweets of kind matrons in other houses, of brothers who escaped and found work in faraway towns, of ships that sail to lands where no one goes hungry. In the dark, they dream together, inventing futures they may never see, and somehow, that is enough to keep the spark alive. Beyond the orphanage walls, the city grows, its factories humming, its river thick with smoke and sewage. Children fill the streets, selling matches, sweeping chimneys, carrying water. Those too sick or too small are swept into the workhouses or into the orphanages like St. Agnes. Philanthropists write speeches. Ladies of charity visit once a month, bringing baskets of fruit and moral advice. They smile at the rows of children, speak softly of God's mercy, and leave again, satisfied. The fruit rarely reaches the dormitories. Inside, the real mercy is found elsewhere, in the hand of one child helping another tie a frayed boot, in the shared warmth beneath a thin blanket, in the brief moment before sleep, when they imagine a mother's voice humming through the dark. Night again, the bell rings once, and the dormitory fills with the rustle of bodies settling. Thomas lies awake, eyes tracing the faint cracks in the ceiling. Somewhere, a girl sobs quietly, muffled by her blanket. No one tells her to stop tonight. The matron's footsteps pass once, then fade. Outside, the snow thickens, the city sleeps. And in that great cold building, dozens of small hearts beat on, fragile and defiant. The darkness wraps around them, gentle now, almost kind. And as you listen, you can almost hear the rhythm of their breaths, a chorus of forgotten children, alive for another night, dreaming their way toward a dawn they may never see. The snow has not stopped for 3 days. The streets outside St. Agnes are buried in white silence, broken only by the distant ring of carriage wheels and the creak of cart axles struggling through slush. Inside the orphanage, the cold has a life of its own, creeping down stairwells, through keyholes, under the narrow doors of every dormitory. The fires are small, coal is rationed. The children huddle closer at night, whispering to share warmth, the thin blankets stiff with frost by morning. In the dim light of dawn, the bell clangs again. Grey faces lift from their pillows. Coughs echo down the rows like a chorus, too weary to finish its song. The matron's voice follows, sharp and tired. Up, prayers. Bare feet touch the freezing floor. Someone stifles a sneeze. Someone else doesn't bother. Thomas Ridge wakes slowly, his breath fogging in the air. His hands are red and cracked, but he doesn't feel them much anymore. He sits up, clutching the little button he keeps hidden under his pillow, the one shaped like a flower, smooth from his thumb, rubbing it night after night. It is the only warm thing he owns. At the far end of the room, a girl coughs until she cannot breathe. The matron moves toward her, places a hand on her forehead, then sighs. To the infirmary, 2 older boys lift the girl carefully and carry her away. No one speaks. The others keep dressing, pulling on threadbare clothes, tying frayed boots with string. In the dining hall, the smell of smoke and boiled oats fills the air. Mr. Caldwell, the overseer, watches from his post beside the Queen's portrait, his ledger open in one hand. He counts as they pass. Numbers, not names. He dips his pen in ink and writes, 2 sick, 1 missing. Outside, beyond the high iron gates, London is coughing too. Cholera and influenza sweep through the poorer quarters. The Thames, black and swollen, carries death through every district. But inside St. Agnes, the disease comes quietly, in the hollow eyes of the new arrivals, in the faint smell of sickness clinging to their clothes. One icy afternoon, the gatekeeper opens the door to a constable holding a bundle. Inside the bundle is a child, small, limp, wrapped in a blanket too thin for the weather. A note pinned to her sleeve reads only, "Clara, born 1850, father dead, mother dying. God help her." The matron says nothing, just nods. The constable leaves. The girl is bathed in cold water, her hair cut short, her clothes burned. Then she is placed in an empty bed beside Thomas. She does not cry. Her eyes are huge and silent, the color of the river at dusk. Thomas whispers, "Hello." She doesn't answer. But later that night, when the coughing starts again in the dark, he feels her hand reach for his under the blanket, small and trembling. He squeezes it once. They say nothing more. Days pass. The snow turns to dirty slush. The city stinks again. Inside the orphanage, the air grows thick with the sour scent of sickness and soap. The infirmary fills. The chapel bell tolls more often. The older children learn to carry small bodies to the cellar, where they wait for the undertaker's cart. No one looks long. Mr. Caldwell orders stricter routines. Hands to be washed twice daily. No talking at meals. No playing in the yard. He says it is God's punishment for ungrateful hearts. The children nod. They always nod. But even punishment cannot stop life from whispering. In the laundry room, Emily hums softly while scrubbing linens, her voice almost lost beneath the hiss of steam. The younger ones listen. It is not a hymn, not a lesson, just a tune from nowhere, light and slow, like sunshine breaking through fog. For a moment, the matron doesn't stop her. For a moment, everyone remembers how silence used to sound before it was heavy. At night, the fever comes for Thomas. It begins with a chill that no blanket can chase away. His teeth chatter, his hands shake. The matron finds him sweating and shivering, lifts him from his bed, and carries him to the infirmary. There, dozens of cots line the walls. Children lie still beneath rough sheets, faces pale, lips dry. A nurse moves between them with a ladle and a basin, muttering prayers under her breath. Thomas dreams of the river, the wide grey Thames, swallowing the city whole. He dreams of his mother standing on the bank, calling him home. But the current pulls harder, darker. He wakes with a start, clutching at the blanket. Beside him, Clara sits on a stool, watching quietly. She has snuck in, ignoring rules and fear alike. She presses a damp cloth to his forehead and whispers, "Don't go where they go." Her voice is thin but steady. Thomas nods, though his eyes are heavy. Then sleep takes him again. A week passes. The fever breaks. The infirmary empties slowly, though not everyone returns to the dormitory. The small wooden crosses behind the chapel multiply. Still, life inches forward. The matron's lantern makes its nightly rounds. Mr. Caldwell's pen scratches on, adding and subtracting from his ledger of souls. One afternoon, a visitor arrives, a lady of charity, wrapped in furs, her perfume sweet and foreign in the stale air. She speaks gently to the matron, praises her devotion, donates a basket of apples and a silver coin. Then she walks among the children, touching a few heads lightly, as though blessing them. Her eyes rest on Clara for a moment. "Poor little darling," she says, and smiles. When she leaves, the apples vanish into the staff kitchen. The children remember only the smell, sharp, bright, impossible. Spring hesitates at first. The snow melts, but the air stays damp and grey. The city wakes with its usual noise, hawkers' church bells, the hiss of steam from the factories along the river. The orphanage walls remain the same color, the color of neglect. But inside, something shifts. The children have grown. Thomas can carry coal now. Clara helps the laundress. Emily teaches the smallest ones their letters, tracing shapes on their palms when paper runs out. Sometimes, when no one is watching, they sneak into the yard. The air smells of soot and mud, but it is free. They draw faces in the dirt with sticks, laugh softly, and chase each other between the wash lines. Laughter in St. Agnes is rare. It sounds strange, like a foreign language rediscovered. For a few minutes, they forget the rules. For a few minutes, they are children. But the matron's shadow falls across the yard, and the laughter stops. She doesn't shout. She simply says, Inside, her voice carries no anger, only exhaustion. She too was once young, long ago. That night, thunder rolls over London. Rain lashes the windows, and the dormitory flickers with the light of distant lightning. Thomas lies awake, listening to the storm. Beside him, Clara sleeps, breathing softly. He wonders where the rain goes when it stops, whether it returns to the sky or hides in the earth like the forgotten souls beneath the chapel. He imagines them waking with the dawn, clean and unafraid. He doesn't know why the thought comforts him, but it does. Outside, the rain keeps falling, washing the soot from the rooftops, whispering against the glass like a lullaby. The children sleep, the city dreams, and somewhere in that endless rhythm between thunder and silence, hope begins again, small but alive. Summer comes late that year, shy and pale. The sun filters through a sky still heavy with soot, laying faint gold over the rooftops of London. In the courtyards of factories, machines groan from morning until night. The air smells of iron, smoke, and the slow burning of endless days. At St. Agnes, the children have grown leaner, quieter, and older than their years. Thomas is now 10. His shoulders have begun to straighten. His eyes hold a steadiness far beyond childhood. Clara has grown taller too, her hair dark against the white of her worn collar. They no longer hold hands when they sleep. They no longer need to. A look between them says enough. The bell still rules their lives, but new sounds have joined it. The clatter of boots, the bark of orders, the metallic ring of tools. Mr. Caldwell has arranged for apprenticeships, as he calls them, agreements with nearby factories and workshops. The orphanage receives a few pennies for each child sent. The children receive nothing but exhaustion. The first morning they march out, the sun barely risen, a line of grey-clad figures shuffling through the fog. Their destination, a textile mill along the river. The foreman there is a thin man with ink on his cuffs and a face like unbaked bread. He greets Mr. Caldwell with a handshake, then turns to the children. Strong backs, small hands, he mutters. They'll do. The factory smells of oil and dust. Machines fill the hall, tall as trees, their belts spinning, their gears gnashing like hungry mouths. The noise is constant, a roar that swallows thought. Thomas and Clara are given baskets of thread to carry. Emily works near the spinning frames, her sleeves tied back, hair wrapped tight. They are told, keep moving, keep quiet, don't fall asleep. Hours blur. The air grows thick with lint, stinging eyes and throats. The foreman walks the aisles with a stick, tapping it against the machines. When someone slows, the stick finds their shoulder. When someone coughs, the sound is lost in the grinding of metal. At midday, they are given water and bread. They sit in silence, hands raw, fingers swollen. Outside, the river glimmers through dirty windows, the only sign that the world still exists beyond this room of motion and noise. By dusk, they return to St. Agnes, their steps uneven, faces grey with fatigue. The matron counts them at the gate. Her lips tighten, but she says nothing. The children eat their gruel and fall into bed without a word. Sleep comes fast, heavy and dreamless. Weeks pass, routine becomes memory. The factory and the orphanage blur into one endless corridor of work and sleep. Yet small kindnesses survive. A stolen crust of bread shared in the corner, a smile exchanged when the foreman looks away. Clara hums softly at the spinning frame, her voice swallowed by the machines, but still felt by those near her. It is enough to remind them they are human. One afternoon, an inspector arrives from the city. His coat is new, his pen shiny, his eyes cautious. He walks through the mill, taking notes, asking questions no one answers truthfully. The foreman smiles too much. Mr. Caldwell bows too low. The inspector glances at the children, at the bent backs and thin wrists, but he writes little. The law demands oversight, not compassion. By the time he leaves, the foreman is laughing again. That evening, a rumor spreads. Someone has run away. A boy named Peter, older, clever, with eyes that always watched the windows. He slipped out during lunch, vanished into the city. The others whisper about him for days, imagining him free among the crowds, maybe selling newspapers, maybe already caught. When the constables visit a week later with no answers, his name is erased from the roll. Autumn brings colder air and darker skies. The Thames floods, rats multiply. In the dormitory, leaks drip into buckets lined down the center aisle. The matron moves slower now, her hair streaked with white. Even Mr. Caldwell's voice has softened slightly. though he hides it beneath the same barked orders. One night, near the end of October, a lamp is left burning in the laundry room. The flame catches a curtain, and the curtain catches the air. By the time the smell of smoke reaches the dormitory, the fire has already found the rafters. Children wake coughing, eyes wide, faces lit orange by flickering light. The matron's voice cuts through the chaos, sharp, commanding, "Out, out, all of you." The older boys lift the smallest, carrying them toward the stairwell. Thomas grips Clara's hand, pulling her through the thickening smoke. The heat is fierce, the air alive with ash. Somewhere behind them, a beam cracks and falls, scattering sparks. Outside, snowflakes fall through the smoke. The children stumble into the yard, coughing, shivering, eyes streaming. The bell clangs wildly as the alarm spreads through the neighborhood. Men rush with buckets, shouting. The fire roars through the windows, devouring the dormitory in red light. Clara turns back once. In the upper window she sees Emily, her face lit by the flames, eyes wide but calm. For a heartbeat, their gazes meet. Then the ceiling collapses. The window shatters. Emily is gone. By dawn, St. Agnes is a skeleton of stone and smoke. The children huddle in the yard, under blankets given by neighbors. The matron sits on a crate, her face gray, hands folded in her lap. She looks older than the building itself. Mr. Caldwell paces, muttering about insurance, about ledgers, about reports. The constables come, write their notes, promise nothing. A week later, the survivors are divided. Some are sent to other orphan houses, some to parish workhouses. A few, including Thomas and Clara, are taken by a charity called the Society for the Betterment of Foundlings. They travel by cart to a new institution on the outskirts of the city, larger, cleaner, newer. To the children, it feels no different. New walls, same silence. The new orphanage stands on a hill, surrounded by fields that never seem green. The air smells faintly of coal smoke from the nearby rail line. The rules are stricter here. No talking at meals, no eye contact with visitors, no songs. Punishments are swift, but they come with smiles and prayers. Discipline through kindness, the superintendent says. The food is better, the bed's softer, but the emptiness remains. Thomas misses the creak of old floors, the way Emily used to hum. Clara dreams of her face, waking with tears she cannot explain. The superintendent, a man named Reverend Hill, believes in moral salvation through labor. Every morning he speaks of gratitude and obedience. The children repeat his words like verses. Then they scrub, sew, polish, until their hands ache. But at night, when the lamps go out, Clara whispers stories, not of saints or angels, but of Emily, how she must be a star now, watching from the smoke above London. The younger children listen with wide eyes. Thomas listens too, saying nothing, his hand resting near hers on the blanket. Weeks become months. A new routine forms. Clara helps in the kitchen. Thomas works in the gardens. Sometimes he sees trains passing in the distance, their lights flashing through the fog like brief promises. He wonders where they go, and whether someone like him could ever be on one. One cold evening, as he carries buckets from the well, he hears laughter, bright, unfamiliar. A group of townspeople stands by the gate, waiting for Reverend Hill. Among them is a woman with red gloves and a kind smile. She kneels to speak to the children, asking their names, their ages. Thomas hesitates, unsure if he's allowed to answer. But Clara steps forward and says softly, "My name is Clara. This is Thomas." The woman's eyes warm. "Such brave faces," she says. "You must come to the chapel tomorrow. We're planning a Christmas fair." A fair. The word sounds strange on their tongues. For nights after, the children whisper about it. Sweets, ribbons, candles. Even the matron smiles once, though quickly hides it. When the day comes, the chapel is bright with garlands and paper stars. The smell of cinnamon fills the air. Townspeople bring cakes, toys, small gifts. The children sing hymns, their voices trembling but clear. For a few hours, the orphanage feels almost alive. Clara receives an orange, her first. She peels it slowly, the scent flooding her senses, sharp and sweet. Thomas watches her smile and thinks, maybe we have survived the worst. But survival is not the same as freedom. Night falls. The candles are snuffed out. The laughter fades. Outside, snow begins to fall again, soft and endless. Inside the dormitory, the children sleep close, their breaths rising and falling together like the tide. Thomas dreams of trains and rivers. Clara dreams of light behind smoke. And in the quiet, the walls of the new orphanage hold their secrets, the same as the old ones, just painted over. The years pass slowly in the orphanage on the hill. Days fold into one another, soft as the pages of a worn book. Outside, the railway expands, new tracks cutting through the countryside like veins of iron. Inside, the children grow into silence, the kind of silence that clings to walls and memories alike. Thomas Ridge is nearly 13 now. His hands are calloused from work in the gardens, his shoulders narrow but strong. He speaks little, listens much, and has learned the rhythm of survival. How to move quietly, how to work quickly, how to never draw attention. Clara, a year younger, has become the matron's helper. She scrubs, mends, and tends to the smallest children, her voice a calm whisper in the chaos of each morning. Her kindness is quiet, invisible to those in charge, but felt deeply by those who sleep near her. The winters still bite, but the fear has softened. The children no longer jump at every footstep. They no longer cry when the lights go out. They have learned that the world can take much from you, but if you guard the small things, the small moments, you can still remain yourself. Sometimes, when Reverend Hill preaches too long about obedience and divine gratitude, Thomas's mind drifts. He imagines walking beyond the gates, past the railway, into the city whose smoke he can see from the chapel steps. He wonders what lies beyond shops, carriages, crowds that do not know his name or care where he came from. Freedom smells like the faint scent of coal drifting from the trains. One morning, new visitors arrive. A group of gentlemen in black coats, their hats tall and their boots shining. They call themselves the board. They speak softly to Reverend Hill, exchange papers, and walk through the dormitories with the air of men inspecting furniture. They pause by each bed, nodding, murmuring about progress and efficiency. One of them, a younger man with kind eyes, crouches beside Clara. He asks her name. She hesitates. "Clara," she says finally. "And do they treat you well here?" he asks. Her lips part, but Reverend Hill clears his throat behind him, and she only nods. The man's smile fades. He stands, makes a note in his book, and moves on. That night, Clara whispers to Thomas. He looked like he knew. Thomas stares at the ceiling. Then maybe he'll remember. But neither of them really believe it. By spring, whispers begin to circle, talk of new laws, of reform. The newspapers speak of child welfare, of oversight, of rescue. The matron says it's all just words. People like to be good on paper, she mutters, while scrubbing the floors. But ink washes off easier than dirt. Still, the winds of change reach even here. Inspectors visit more often, lessons are added, and for the first time, some of the older children are allowed to read proper books. Clara devours them, stories of explorers, of distant lands, of girls who escape and find something better. Thomas reads slower, but he listens when she tells him the stories, her voice weaving adventure through the candlelight. One evening she reads aloud. "The stars are not just lights above us," she says softly. "They're windows to every dream that ever was." Thomas smiles. "Then maybe Emily's up there," he murmurs. Clara nods, and she can see us. For the first time in years, they both laugh, small, tired laughs, but real. Summer brings with it a new routine. The society opens a program. Children of suitable age may be placed out as workers in households or farms. The superintendent says it's an opportunity. The matron says nothing, but her eyes tighten. The children know what it means, a test of luck. Some will find kind employers, a warm bed, maybe even a future. Others will vanish into the same silence that swallows the poor everywhere. When the list is read, Thomas's name is there, Clara's is not. He is to be sent to a farm outside Reading, a respectable family, decent wages, good Christian people. Reverend Hill says it as if reciting a prayer. That night, Clara sits by the window, the candle burning low. "You'll like the country," she whispers. "I don't care about the country," Thomas answers. "I care about leaving you here." She looks down, twisting her fingers. "Maybe you'll come back. Maybe when you're grown you'll find me again." He doesn't promise. He knows promises are dangerous things. But before the candle dies, he says quietly, "I'll try." The morning of departure smells of rain. The cart waits by the gate. The driver already impatient. Thomas carries a small sack, one change of clothes, a Bible, and the button he still keeps hidden. The matron adjusts his collar and steps back. "Work hard," she says. "Keep your head down." Reverend Hill gives a prayer, long and loud, more for the donors than for the boy. When it's done, Clara stands near the gate, pretending to sweep. She cannot wave. It isn't allowed. But as the cart rattles away, she lifts her eyes, and Thomas sees the faintest nod, a promise, silent and unbreakable. The road is long. Fields roll past, green and gold beneath the summer sun. The air smells cleaner here, but emptier too. At dusk, the cart stops at a farmhouse surrounded by hedgerows. A man with rough hands and a red beard meets him. "You'll call me Master Hobbs," he says. "You'll rise at 5 and sleep when I tell you." Thomas nods. The man's wife brings him bread and cold milk. It tastes like nothing he's ever known. Rich, real. For a moment, it feels like hope. But hope, like milk, turns sour if left too long. Weeks turn into months. The work is hard, endless hours in the fields, hauling water, tending animals. Hobbs shouts more than he speaks. His wife rarely smiles. Still, they feed him, clothe him, and he learns to live in the rhythm of wind and earth. When he's alone, he talks to the cows, to the sky, to no one. At night, lying in the small loft above the barn, he traces the button in his hand and thinks of Clara. Sometimes, on Sundays, the local children pass by in clean clothes, laughing. They never speak to him. He is the orphan, the strange boy who came from the city. He doesn't mind. Silence is easier. One evening, a letter arrives. Thin paper, careful handwriting. It's from Clara. The orphanage has new people now. The Reverend is gone. They say things will be better. I hope you are well. I think of London sometimes. I think of the river, and I think of you. He reads it 100 times before hiding it under his pillow. Winter returns with a vengeance. Frost crawls over the windows, and the farm grows still. Hobbs grows harsher, his temper short. One night, after Thomas spills a pail of milk, the man's hand finds his cheek, hard, fast. The sting burns long after the blow. No apology follows. Thomas says nothing. He's used to silence. A week later, he runs. He waits until the house is dark, gathers his sack, and slips into the cold. The moon is thin, the road empty. His breath clouds in front of him. He walks until his legs ache, until the sky begins to pale. He doesn't know where he's going, only that he's going back. Back to London. Back to Clara. Back to something that still feels like home. Days pass in a blur of hunger and cold. He steals rides on wagons, begs for bread at inns, sleeps in barns. The city takes him back like an old ghost, swallowing him in its smoke and sound. Streets twist like memories, and he follows them until he sees it. The hill, the iron gate, the building that once held every dream and fear he's ever known. St. Agnes is gone. In its place stands a new home. Brick clean, windows bright. A painted sign reading Foundlings, Asylum for the Poor. Children play in the yard, laughing under a grey sky. Thomas stops at the gate, heart hammering. A matron he doesn't know approaches. "Can I help you, boy?" He swallows hard. "I'm looking for someone. A girl, Clara." The woman frowns. Clara Hart. She was sent away last spring, apprenticed to a family in Bath. Thomas nods slowly. "Thank you." He turns away before she can ask more. He stands by the fence a long time, watching the children run. Their laughter feels both foreign and familiar, like a song he once knew by heart. The city hums below, endless and alive. The wind carries the smell of coal and bread, of life that goes on. Thomas slips the button from his pocket and holds it up to the light. It shines faintly, like something still waiting to be found. He closes his hand around it, breathes deeply, and starts walking again, toward the sound of the trains. The road to Bath winds like a ribbon through fields and valleys. It is early spring again, though the air still carries the chill of winter. The hedgerows bloom faintly with frost-tipped buds, and the earth smells of damp soil and rain. Thomas walks alone, his boots worn thin, the sky above pale and wide. He follows the sound of wheels and birds, sleeps where the grass is dry, eats when luck allows. Sometimes he rides hidden in the back of wagons, the boards creaking beneath him. He has grown leaner, his face sharper, but his eyes remain the same, clear, steady, and full of that quiet, stubborn light that never went out. Even in the darkest dormitories of St. Agnes, each night, as he lies under the stars, he traces the small button in his palm. Its edges are smooth now, polished by years of touch. He whispers to it, softly, "I'm still coming." The stars give no answer, but the wind seems to carry his words forward, toward the west. Bath is a different world. The air smells of stone and soap. The streets lined with grand houses of honey-colored brick. The people here move slowly, dressed in fine coats and lace. Children with ribbons in their hair hold their mothers' hands, laughing. The sound stings not from envy, but from memory. Thomas keeps to the side streets, asking where he can about apprentices, about orphan placements, about a girl named Clara Hart. Most shake their heads. Some don't even look at him. Days pass, each one blending into the next. The city is beautiful but cold, its kindness carved into statues and not into people. One evening, as the bells toll across the valley, he finds himself outside a small bakery near the river. The smell of warm bread makes his stomach ache. Inside, a woman serves customers, her face soft and kind. When the last of them leaves, Thomas steps forward. "Excuse me," he says quietly. "Do you know if there's a family here that takes in orphans? From London." The woman frowns, thinking, "There's the Weller family, up on Camden Crescent. They keep a maid, young girl, came from one of those homes, I think." Thomas nods. "Thank you." She hands him a small roll without a word. He takes it, murmurs "God bless you," and walks back into the fog. The house on Camden Crescent is tall, proper, and silent. Light glows from the windows, warm against the dusk. Thomas stands at the gate, heart pounding. He doesn't know what he will say. He doesn't even know if she's here, but he knows he cannot leave without trying. He knocks. A servant opens the door, an older man with tired eyes. "What is it?" he asks. Thomas swallows. "I'm looking for Clara Hart." The man's expression softens slightly. "Oh, the little maid. She's in the kitchen, but she's not well tonight. Fever, poor thing. May I see her?" The servant hesitates. "You family?" "Yes." Thomas lies. "Her brother." The man studies him a moment, then sighs. "Quickly, then make it brief." The kitchen is warm, filled with the faint smell of broth and wood smoke. Clara lies on a cot near the hearth, her face pale, hair damp against her forehead. A candle burns beside her. When Thomas steps closer, she stirs, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, she doesn't move. Then a slow, trembling smile spreads across her face. "Thomas," she whispers. He kneels beside her, taking her hand. It feels smaller than he remembers. "I found you," he says softly. "I knew you would," she murmurs. "You always said you'd try." He laughs quietly, but his voice breaks. "You look the same." She shakes her head weakly. "You look older, tired." He squeezes her hand. "Maybe, but I'm here." For a long time they say nothing. The fire crackles softly, throwing shadows across the floor. Outside, rain taps against the windows, steady and soft, the same rhythm that once played against the panes of St. Agnes. Over the next few days, Thomas stays nearby. The servants, moved by his gentleness, let him sleep in the stable. He helps with chores, carries water, keeps the fire lit for Clara. Slowly, her fever eases. She begins to sit up, to eat, to smile. They talk about everything and nothing about London, the river, the trains, about Emily, whose memory still feels close, about the matron, who might still be alive somewhere, counting beds in another silent house. Clara says softly, "Do you think it ever ends? The houses, the rules, the forgetting." Thomas looks into the fire. "Maybe not, but maybe we can step outside them." When Clara recovers enough to walk, she tells him her plan. "There's a woman here, Mrs. Graham. She runs a small school for girls who can't afford one. She said she might take me on as an assistant, if I can read and write properly." Thomas smiles. "You'll be perfect. You always had stories. And you?" she asks. "I don't know," he admits. "But I'm done being someone's labor." She nods slowly. "Then stay here. We'll both work. We'll make something of our own." He wants to believe her. He really does. But life, even in gentler places, is rarely kind for long. A month later, the Weller family dismisses Clara. Too frail, they say, not fit for service. They give her a single coin and a polite farewell. Mrs. Graham keeps her promise, offering Clara a small room near the school. Thomas finds work at a nearby stables, cleaning, feeding horses, earning just enough for bread and coal. It is a hard life, but there's no bells, no overseers, no ledgers. At night, they sit by the fire, reading from the same worn Bible. The page is soft from years of hands before theirs. Sometimes, Thomas falls asleep before she finishes a verse, his head resting against the wall, the glow of the embers flickering on his face. For the first time, peace feels possible, fragile, uncertain, but real. Years pass, London changes again, spreading outward with steam and light. The great age of industry swallows the horizon. The old orphanages are rebuilt, renamed, forgotten once more. Thomas and Clara grow older too. They never speak of family, because they never had one, but they become something better, each other's anchor in a world that forgets to is. One evening, Clara returns from the school with a small envelope. It's from a gentleman in London, she says. He's writing a report about the old homes. He wants to know what happened to us. Thomas takes the letter, reads it slowly, and smiles faintly. Then maybe the world hasn't forgotten completely. Clara nods. Maybe not, but even if it has, we remember. That's enough. Winter again. Snow drifts softly over the streets of Bath, covering rooftops and chimneys in quiet white. In their small room, the fire burns low. Clara sits by the window, watching the flakes fall. Her hair, once dark, now glimmers with silver at the edges. Thomas works quietly, repairing a harness, humming the same tune Emily once sang in the laundry room so many years ago. "Do you ever think of St. Agnes?" she asks. "Every day," he says. "And do you think the others found peace?" He looks at her, the firelight soft on his face. "If not in life, then in memory. We carry them. That's how they live." She smiles faintly. "Then promise me we'll never stop remembering." "I promise," he whispers. That night, as snow thickens outside, they fall asleep to the sound of wind and bells from the valley below. The city is quiet, the world far away. In their dreams, they are children again, running through the courtyard, laughing in the rain, free at last from walls and ledges. And as the candle fades, their small room glows with the same soft light that once touched the faces of the forgotten children of St. Agnes. The years slip away, like dust in sunlight. Bath changes again, new roads, new shops, new faces. The world grows faster, louder, brighter. Steam whistles cut through the air, and the city hums with the rhythm of progress. But in a quiet street near the edge of town, in a small house of stone with ivy climbing the walls, time moves differently. Inside lives a man with gentle hands and a woman with tired eyes that still sparkle when she smiles. Thomas and Clara, they never married, not officially, but no one ever needed proof of what bound them. Together, they built a life from fragments, work, warmth, and the unspoken understanding that they had already walked through fire and survived it. Clara still teaches at Mrs. Graham's school, though now she sits more often than she stands, her legs weaker each winter. The children adore her. They bring her wildflowers and scraps of ribbon, call her Miss Clara, in voices full of laughter. She tells them stories of courage and kindness, stories about children who were never seen but never stopped shining. She never says the word orphan. She doesn't have to. The lessons live between her words. Thomas works in the stable by the river, tending horses for the post office. He rises early, his hands steady even when the air freezes. He hums while he works, the same melody that once echoed through the stone halls of St. Agnes. Sometimes he pauses, watching the mist rise off the water, and for a heartbeat he sees the faces of old friends, Emily, Peter, the nameless ones whose laughter once filled the cracks of a broken world. They're never really gone. They live in every breath of cold air, in every child who still believes that tomorrow will be kinder. One autumn evening, the light fades early. Thomas returns home to find Clara by the window, a blanket around her shoulders. She's been sorting through a small wooden box, a box of memories. Inside are letters, a pressed flower, and the small, worn button. He sits beside her, smiling softly. "You kept it all this time?" She nods. "I thought I'd lost it once, but it always finds its way back." He takes the button from her hand, feeling its familiar shape. "It was yours first, you know." She shakes her head gently. "It was never anyone's, just something small that refused to be forgotten." They sit in silence for a while. Outside, the leaves drift across the cobblestones, whispering against the door. Somewhere in the distance, church bells begin to ring, slow, steady, comforting. Clara leans her head against his shoulder. "Do you ever wonder what happened to St. Agnes?" "I heard they tore it down," he says. "Built a new hospital there." She smiles faintly. "Then maybe it finally healed something." Winter follows, soft and white. The school closes for the season, and the town grows quiet. Clara spends more time resting, her hands folded on her lap, eyes following the snow outside. The children from the school still visit, bringing oranges and candles. They sit by her chair and listen to her stories. One night, as the fire burns low, she looks at Thomas and says, "If I go first, promise me something." He frowns. "Don't talk like that. Promise me," she insists. He nods slowly. "Anything. Keep telling the stories, so they don't disappear again." He takes her hand, pressing it to his lips. "I will." She smiles. "Then we'll never really be gone." When spring returns, the snow melts quietly. Clara passes away one morning just before dawn, her face peaceful, her hands folded neatly as if in prayer. The first light of the sun touches her cheek, turning it gold. Thomas sits beside her for a long time, holding her hand until it grows cold. He does not cry. The tears have already been shed in another lifetime. He buries her beneath a lilac tree near the school, where the children can see the blossoms from their classroom windows. On the small stone marker, he carves her name, Clara Hart, beloved teacher, never forgotten. The years after are quiet. Thomas grows slower, his hair white, his hands lined with time. Yet he keeps working, keeps humming, keeps speaking softly to every lost child he meets. The people in town call him the caretaker, not just of horses, but of memories. He visits the school often, reading aloud to the students from the same Bible Clara once used. The younger teachers smile, letting him stay as long as he wants. Sometimes he tells the children stories of a place far away, a house of stone and silence, where laughter was forbidden, but still found a way to bloom. The children listen with wide eyes. They do not know the names, but they feel the truth behind them. And when he finishes, he always says the same thing: "You are never truly forgotten, so long as someone remembers your name." One evening, many years later, as dusk falls over Bath, Thomas sits by the fire alone. The air smells of smoke and lilac from the tree outside. He opens the old wooden box. Inside is the button, the pressed flower, and Clara's letters. He runs his fingers over them slowly, then closes the lid. "I kept my promise," he whispers. He leans back in his chair, eyes closing, breath soft and even. The fire crackles gently, casting warm light across the room. Outside, the first stars appear faint, trembling, eternal, and somewhere, beyond the veil of time, two children walk hand in hand through a courtyard filled with sunlight, their laughter rising like birds into the sky. Years later, when the house is empty, townsfolk find the small wooden box by the hearth. Inside, they discover the letters, the button, and a note written in neat, faded script for those who were never named, but always remembered. They place the box in the school library, beside the window overlooking the lilac tree. Sometimes, when the wind passes through, the blossoms fall onto the glass, pale, soft, and fleeting, like whispers of the past returning home. And so it is said that on quiet nights, when the air is still and the bells of Bath echo faintly across the hills, you can almost hear it, the faint laughter of forgotten children carried on the wind, not haunting, not sorrowful, just free.